Thank you. Zed, do you want to tell us where you're from? Yes.
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Zayed. I'm from New York, and unlike those two, I'm not Pakistani. I'm Bengali, but I've never been to Bangladesh, so I understand the pain, Mr. Mayor. All right, well, it's your event. Take it away.
Okay. 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 I will. Okay. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Ankita Jakumar, and I am so excited to have Mayor Shammas Malik of Akron, Ohio, here with us today. So, alongside Ohio Chair Safa Ahmad and Muslim Caucus Vice Chair Zaid Zaman, I'd like to start off this event just by saying thank you, Mayor Malik, for being like literally so nice, and we love having politicians on.
And
So
never
let me
responding to your
just
emails.
yes, yes, thank you. And so let me just get into a quick introduction. So Mayor Malik made history as the first Muslim mayor, first person of color entirely of Akron, Ohio, bringing a fresh perspective to local governments. With a background in law and public policies, prioritize transparency, community engagement, and policies that address economic development, public safety, and social equity. His journey as a son of Pakistani immigrants and his experiences as an attorney and a city council member provide a unique lens on how leadership in local government will work. We are so happy to have him share his insights with us today. Mayor Malik, if you'd like to talk more about like what you've done, your background, etc.
Absolutely. So hi everybody. It's great to be with you tonight. For all the Muslims on the call, Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak. I hope the first week has gone okay. And yeah, it's great to be with all of you tonight. It's cool to see people, so engaged at such a young age. You guys are making me feel old. But I'll just talk a little bit about my background and kind of how I got here, and then uh, you know, definitely want to hear your thoughts and your questions and everything. So I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio, right here in Akron. And my dad's an immigrant from Pakistan. My mom is from a Irish Catholic family in upstate New York, Syracuse, New York, and they met in a classic American story, playing volleyball on the banks of the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., and moved to Akron. My mom got a job teaching at the University of Akron. And my dad wanted to name me Shams, which is Arabic for son. My mom has a nephew named Seamus Sullivan, the most Irish name you could come up with. So they combined it into a name no one can pronounce, Shammas. So when I go to the mosque, people call me Shams, and there's plenty of people who call me Seamus. So growing up, had a pretty normal kind of upper middle class childhood. Um, we were my mom converted, and we were raised Muslim, and we're very involved at the mosque, and just a great childhood. I was 10 when 9/11 happened, and that was kind of a huge impact on me as a kid. It was strange. I remember I opened up the Akron Beacon Journal, and they had pictures of all of the hijackers, and I remember as like a young kid looking at that and being like, why did this happen, and why do these people look like me, and they have names that sound like my name? And I started just reading a lot more about international relations and foreign affairs, and I was a pretty nerdy kid. um, that was, the Iraq War started soon thereafter, and they just got really interested in politics, and particularly like the Bush administration. Things were really crazy. And then when I was in high school, President Obama ran, and he came to Akron in March of 2008 during the primary. And it was this uplifting, kind of more hopeful, more inspiring time. He got elected president, and passed a law that then allowed 30 million people who didn't have health insurance to have health insurance. And my mom was pretty sick then. She had cancer for a decade, and because of the University of Akron, she had good health insurance, so we didn't never have to worry about that. But it did stop and make me think, like, going through all these appointments, going through all these checkups, like what if she didn't have that insurance? What about people who are going through this without insurance? And so there are plenty of things that, President Obama didn't get right, plenty of mistakes. But it was also like a reminder that government can do things to impact people's lives for better and for worse. It's not like a conspiracy. Like government is just the aggregate of all of our choices, right? And so we can either, empower people to make good choices, empower people to make bad choices. And so I was at The Ohio State University, where I happened to meet Safa's parents. And I spent all my summers in Washington, D.C. And I thought I was going to work in D.C. I had a chance then to go to Harvard for law school, which was like a crazy experience. I didn't know anyone who went to Harvard before I went there. And it was this really cool experience. I still thought I was going to end up in Washington, D.C. I spent my first summer of law school at the Pentagon. Ultimately the more that I was there, the more that I thought, if I really want to make an impact, I should try to make an impact back home where I'm from. And this is a little bit corny, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to lean into it. You all should know that LeBron James is from Akron, Ohio. And that summer in 2014, he came back from Miami to Cleveland. And he wrote this really beautiful letter. And it said, before anyone cared who I was, before I was a superstar, I was just a kid from Akron. And our city, which has struggled so much, needs all the help it can get. And that really had an impact on me because I had so many opportunities in life because of the city, because of Akron Public Schools, because of the IB program at my public high school, all of those things. And so I thought, what if I go back home? So I, after I finished law school in 2016, I moved back home. All my classmates from law school were going to New York and DC, and they were going to make like 3 and 4 times as much money as me. And they were like, why are you going back home to Akron? And it was really cool though, going back to like a city where I was from and then kind of like reconnecting with it as an adult. I also worked on the Hillary campaign. You can see a whole thing back here. The cast of The West Wing came and did all these campaign events in Ohio, and it was a cool time. Unfortunately, that campaign did not end how anyone wanted it to end, and we got President Trump. And I worked as a lawyer for the city of Akron. I did that for a few years, and then the opportunity came to run for city council in the neighborhood where I grew up. And so it was actually a really cool experience. It was like kind of like a West Wing kind of thing. I quit my job. I lived off my savings. I just went around and knocked on doors, and all the people I knew, their son played soccer with my little brother, or they were my 8th grade English teacher, or whatever the connection was. And so won that election, and then started on city council in 2020. Obviously, just a couple of months later, the pandemic started. I was talking to Senator Sherrod Brown, and he said, boy, you really picked a bad time to do all of this. It was a very difficult time. Obviously, we all went through COVID, and then the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis in the summer of 2020. And in the time since then, Akron has also dealt with a lot of challenges around police use of force and deadly use of force, including in the summer of 2022, there was a young man named Jalen Walker who was killed by the Akron police, and he was shot at over 100 times. And it's a complicated situation. He had led police on a car chase, and he had fired a weapon during the car chase, but still the number of shots and the whole situation really kind of created a lot of chaos in the city and a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, particularly in the Black community, but really across the entire community. And I was this young city councilman who was trying to figure out how I should react and how I should advocate. And I really pushed for the creation of this police auditor office and a civilian oversight board, and we got it on the ballot and we got it passed, and over the objections of the mayor. And ultimately, I decided to run for mayor. Akron is a city that has had a lot of really cool things. We were the rubber capital of the world 100 years ago. The three biggest rubber companies in the world were in Akron, Firestone, Goodyear, and General Tire. But it's also been struggling. And so we've gone from 300,000 people to under 200,000 people, and we've kind of leveled off. So we're not still kind of shrinking, but there isn't the growth and opportunity of cities like Columbus, Ohio, or other places. And so I thought, this is a place that really needs more vision. It needs more strategy. It needs to kind of be a lot more open, a lot more free thinking, listening to people who are not necessarily like the old school people. We have had a mayor for 28 years. And then a mayor for 8 years. And so I ran against 6 other people. It was a very crazy campaign. Had to talk to a lot of people, had to raise a lot of money. I got 43% of the vote in a 7-way race. And that was 2023. So I started in January of 2024. It's been 14 months. It's been a challenge. Each and every single day is a challenge. It's a huge honor and a privilege. It's an amazing opportunity, but it also is really difficult. And each day, I see some of the coolest things in our community. I see people who are really just working so hard on behalf of other people. And I also hear stories that are so difficult. I spoke with a woman this week at a laundromat. We were doing this event to help people out, who need clean clothes, and started talking to this woman, and she ended up talking to me about her 14-year-old daughter who was killed in a shooting in 2020. And, you have to take that in, you have to process that, you have to respect and honor someone sharing something that difficult with you. But then you have to figure out like how you are hopefully making a change and making an impact on that issue going forward, so that other people don't have to deal with that. So like I said, it's been, an amazing opportunity. I'm the youngest person to ever be mayor of the city of Akron in 200 years. And, there have been a lot of interesting things as part of that. Obviously I'm Muslim, and, being a Muslim mayor has been interesting. It's been difficult. I was just about to start as mayor when October 7th happened. And we have a really big Jewish community here in Akron that, a lot of people who I'm very close with. And then we obviously have a Muslim community. And I've sometimes felt like a push-pull between the two. And that's been the challenge. But, also just trying to like wake up every day and be authentic to who I am. Also, in the meantime, I last year got married, and we've been married 5 months this week, so that's pretty cool. But trying to figure out that balance of wanting to have a life and have a family while also just working kind of constantly around the clock at this job. So a lot of stuff going on, but I've been talking for longer than I thought. Happy to take any questions or just hear what you have to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you've done for the city of Akron is really inspiring. Like coming back to the hometown and trying to work within what that space is so it's definitely one that choices that most people don't make. But I feel like it is good to get out of the hometown and come back, which I think it's good to get perspective in that way. Yeah, so we have a couple of questions like specifically prepared. So for like us specifically, the AANHPI caucus, we'd love to ask, what steps do you feel can be taken to increase like representation of our demographic in local government? And have you faced like specific challenges because of your background?
I think like one of the things is to like always pay it forward, right? So like always be advocating for others and really trying to help out wherever you can. So, like obviously like anybody who wants to reach out and get advice, like I can help. But earlier this week, one of my friends in Columbus, she texted me and connected with me with a Muslim guy who's running for city council in Cleveland. And like I don't know him, I don't know who he's running against. He might be running against a friend of mine, like whatever, but I'm definitely going to text him back and say like, hey, let me know when you want to talk, let me know how I can help, whatever advice I can give. I remember there was this guy who, right when I got elected mayor, he kept like reaching out and bugging me and like wanting me to get on this Facebook Live he had. And he was this young Muslim kid in Texas, and like now he's a city councilman in Austin, and like I'm really proud of him. Zoe Kadri.
We just had an event with him in February.
Yeah, because he's
That's hilarious.
because he's everywhere. But it's like that, right? It's not that big of a community, right? So like everybody knows everybody, and like you don't know, like you might be giving somebody an opportunity that might really help, right? And so just constantly being cognizant of the fact that like that it's important to just push other people, and then also like push people to believe in themselves. Like oftentimes, especially Muslim community, the Asian community, folks, often like parents are pushing folks to be doctors or scientists or engineers or lawyers, and not necessarily like social science or politics or that kind of thing. And just to like let people know that like it's okay to follow your dreams. It's okay to run and lose, right? It's okay to try some of this stuff. And at the end of the day, I think that in the second half of the question was like, what barriers have I faced? Honestly, I'll be very like candid. Like people ask me this all the time, and I'm like, not really. When I ran for council, it was something I was cognizant of, not just because of being Muslim, but also because of being so young, really. And I remember one time I knocked on a door, and it was this older white couple, and they were really nice, and we talked for a while. But then eventually they were like, "So are you?" They were like really awkward, and I was like, "You can just say whatever you want to ask." And they're like, "Are you Christian?" And I was like, "No, I'm Muslim." And they were like asking me about it, and they were like, "So what does that mean? Like what values were you raised with?" I was like, "Look, like I was like I imagine it's very similar values to you, like honesty and hard work and treating people with respect and like serving others and all these things. But like I also grew up like 8 blocks from the house we're standing in front of, right? So like my values are your values, right? And I think that that's important to try to like cut through some of the BS. And like I found like when people know you, they don't it's harder for them to like engage some of those stereotypes or bigotry. Like the funniest thing when I was running, I forgot this is so long ago. When I was running for council, there was this guy who would like post this crazy stuff on our Facebook and like just be like, this guy wants to commit jihad and kill you and like all this stuff. And so on election day, I'm standing in front of the polls, and I'm talking to this guy, and he was like very nice. And after he left, my campaign manager came up, and she was like, "Do you know who that is?" And I was like, "No." She was like, "That's the dude who posts all that crazy stuff on Facebook." And like he's a lot less intense in person, right? Because like it's harder to be like the like macho racist dude like in person to somebody, right? And then really like it hasn't been an issue running for mayor or anything like that. Like again, people like people and like I can't tell, maybe there are a lot of people who didn't vote for me because I'm Muslim. They didn't tell me, but like I haven't seen it a lot. And so I give people a lot of credit. Like I think sometimes there's a worry that like sometimes it's possible to play into the fears or like preempt the fears, like. And I think just trying to like just be who you are, right? And like people can either accept it or not, right? And they might not, but there's not much you can do about it.
Absolutely. We either have to show up for communities or we show up for communities. It's pretty much it. But I definitely have not seen as much of the discrimination. I feel like things are a lot more easier to run as a minority in several different places. Georgia, for one, is definitely very like there's a county next to me that's like has over 15 districts. Almost all of them are minority led, Black, AANHPI, Latino representatives. And it's really cool to see them like in Congress advocating for things that like we all care about and all of that. But
Yeah,
I will be
sorry,
yeah.
if I can just jump in, like, and then sometimes people expect you to be like the Muslim mayor or the like Asian mayor or whatever, and you're like, no,
Yeah,
like I'm the mayor of everybody here in the city. Like it's informed by my identity and my values, but like I'm everybody's mayor. I'm not just here to be the mayor of Muslim people, you know? And so it's cutting through like what the expectation that people have of you is, you know.
absolutely, because people look at your face and your ethnicity and your religion and they think certain things, but you're just disqualified, if not more, than the people you're running against, the people you're working with. But yeah, Safa, if you want to take the next question, go for it.
Yeah, I had a question. So, being in Ohio, my question was, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities in engaging young people in Akron or just in Ohio as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the challenge is that like people, it's easy to be hopeless in Ohio, right? Like, we've had one Democratic governor during my lifetime, right? And like we might not ever have a Democratic governor again. We might not ever have a Democratic U.S. senator again. But like I think one of the things that you have to be hopeful around is that like politics like often is a pendulum and shifts happen, and oftentimes when one side thinks that they've that they've completely won is when they overreach and it begins to work against them. And that isn't always the case, right? Like right now, either the pendulum can swing back against Trump or we could like fully descend into fascism and like not have elections in this country again, right? Like both are possible. Not to be alarmist, but I think that's just the case. But I think you have to like look for examples of positive action. So even though Democrats haven't been able to win in Ohio for the most part, we have been able to pass laws about, the constitutional amendment around protecting abortion, some efforts around redistricting. And so there are ways to make a difference. There are ways in which people's organizing and their vote matters and showing them that. And then I will say it helped a lot for me to be like in 2012 when I was at Ohio State. I was an intern for Senator Sherrod Brown. And then, in 2019, when I'm running for council, I was endorsed by Sherrod Brown. And now, as mayor, this is just a guy I know. But like to have an example of someone who is kind of like walking the walk and who has been successful is really helpful. And I think it's a little bit frustrating now that we don't have that at the state level. But like it also reminds you of like small things like Sherrod Brown. Any room I've ever been in with him, like he goes up to every single person in that room, especially like the service workers or the janitors or the food servers, and like thanks them first and says hi to them first. And like it's so easy to be like the fanciest person in the room and like just be whisked around to all of the like wealthy people in the room and just like duck out. Like it's like if you're conscious and intentional about it though, like you make sure to talk to every single person. And so like in City Hall, like if there's someone who's repairing like a pipe or something, like that's the person I'm going over to and talking to and spending some time with, because I like want to be clear that like I'm not too important for anyone. I'm not more important than anyone. But like those values are things you learn from examples, right? And so I was really fortunate to have that example. And hopefully, there can be other people who can serve as examples going forward.
Thanks. I want to pass it to Zaid. I think he had a question.
Hey, the question I had was, how do you see the role of faith in public service, and what can be done to build stronger bridges between Muslim communities and local government institutions?
Um, it's an interesting question. I think that, for a long time, Democrats have played into this narrative that, like, the Republicans are the party of faith and the Republicans are the party of values and morals and family values. And like like it couldn't be any less true today, right? Like when you have people like Trump who, like, I mean, like, he's an awful person, right? It's not like, it's hard to even like make some argument about it because it's just so stupid. Like, anybody, no matter whether they're Republican or Democrat, like, you wouldn't want a friend like Donald Trump. You wouldn't want to know somebody like Donald Trump. You wouldn't want your kids to spend time with somebody like Donald Trump. Like, he's an awful human being. And, and so I think that, like, sometimes we don't talk enough about faith. We don't talk enough about values. We don't talk about, like, morals. We don't talk about those things. And, like, sorry, this is my cat. My cat is named after the best ice cream in Ohio, Graders. So Safa should understand that reference. Um, but like, we don't talk about those things. And so, like, it's and also, like, just the importance of being an example, right? So, like, I think, it's important to kind of make sure that, like, you're living up to that, right? And also, and being authentically you, right? And whatever that means. But I think that's really important, because I think that um, you know there's no party has the corner on morality or on values or on faith. But I do think that it's important for people of faith, especially on the left, to, like, be clear about how that's motivation for them, because I think it cuts through, again, a lot of the stereotypes and a lot of the perspectives. And then, in terms of how, like, there can be bridges to a Muslim community, I think that it's a challenge, right? Because I think, frankly, like, a lot of people in the Muslim community are so alienated from politics now. Like, it was true. It's hard to describe because I feel like I'm such a different generation from you guys, but like a lot of Muslims voted for George Bush, right? And, like, they're more culturally conservative. They like really liked Reagan. And but then after 9/11, they're like, oh, these people hate us. We're gonna support Democrats. And then now, over the last 20 years, and now with the conflict in Gaza, people are so alienated. And, like, I can't even blame them, right? Like, I can't, right? Like, I can't say, like, you know, Democrats deserve your vote. But at the same time, like, it was easy for me to vote for Biden over Trump, vote for Harris over Trump. Um, but at the same time, like, I get it. And so I think part of it is just, like, having really honest conversations and being willing to talk about that. And again, being willing to, like, you have to meet people where they're at. So if they don't want to, like, go rally for, a senator or the president, like, maybe they can do still the local organizing that still is important around the minimum wage or around other stuff, or just voter registration. And so I think, like, that's part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think like they're one of the reasons that, like, Muslims are so alien right now is that, there's not a lot of maybe Muslim groups that have taken action. And also it's kind of on, like, Muslims ourselves, considering that, we're just so divided at this time. Like in New Jersey, like, my parents are involved with the organization called Engage. They're national.
Yeah.
And, like, they're really controversial because they've worked with politicians, right? And these politicians may in the past have worked with the groups that have in the past supported things that are maybe pro-Israel. And because of that, people are like, oh no, we can't work with this, we can't work with this, everything has their own agenda. And I think that, all this is the reason that, like especially why Muslims are so alienated because we're just not willing to kind of get to that point. So yeah, it's so important to, try to build bridges and find people where they're at, especially with like Democrats right now. I really understood what you were saying when you said that like, like I understand why you won't vote for Democrats, even though like I would vote for a Democrat. Because it's just so true because like everyone's at a different phase. Like I remember my mom, she like right away voted for Harris, even though many of her friends were like, "What the heck?" Many of her friends ended up voting Stein. They were like, "Why would you vote Harris?" And my mom was like, she was trying to convince them to like the last second before they went to the voting centers to vote, try voting Harris. But it's just because the way that also like the Democrats maybe decided to go towards Muslims during the election was also not the best way. So it's really important how we're gonna try, like make Muslims more, impactful. So yeah.
It's so tough, and so this is an interesting story. Yeah, I've never met a president until a couple months ago. I got to meet President Biden through the U.S. Conference of Mayors, literally the weekend before he left, right? So like inauguration weekend, he came and spoke at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I got a chance to talk to him. And like even at that point, I was like, I don't know if I personally want to talk to him because like I'm so disgusted at everything, right? At his approach to Gaza, and his approach to like running again, like all of it, I'm just disgusted by. At the same time, like it's the president of the United States, and like there are things that I admire about him. And so I didn't mention all of this, but my mom ended up passing away right when I finished college, and he wrote a book about his son who had brain cancer and who passed away from brain cancer. And that book helped me deal with the grief around my mom. And so I went and I talked to him about the book, and I thanked him for that. And like, it was this beautiful moment. I really like I'll always be appreciative that I talked to him about that. But at the same time, that doesn't negate all the bad stuff, right? That doesn't like make all that bad stuff okay, right? And so I mean, like no one's perfect in politics. And like we have to figure out how we want to engage and when we want to engage and where we want to engage and that kind of thing. So like those are our personal decisions for each of us.
Absolutely. It's hard to reconcile this idea of the slightly better candidate compared to the not so great candidate. So it definitely feels like it's always a toss-up when it comes to presidential elections because no one is going to be perfect for everyone. So I definitely feel that because even if I was someone who did canvass for Harris, I didn't agree with pretty much everything she said, but I thought she was better for the country than Trump would have been. And honestly, I feel like I was right. Very much so.
Hard to argue with that today, right? Like
Absolutely. So, we can go into some of the more general questions. So, as a former lawyer, I'm not sure if you continue to practice law. If you do, I'd love to learn like what specific law you used to do or still do. How has your legal background shaped your approach to like public safety and public policy, such as like the vehicle pursuit reforms and the mental health corresponder programs you're working on?
so this is really interesting. I felt like I had to a lot of people go to law school because they see other people with law degrees and they're like, I guess I have to go to law school. And that was kind of me. Like I didn't always want to be a lawyer. But I will say like it's so valuable. I talk to like my friends who are lawyers who aren't my friends who are mayors who aren't lawyers. And they're like, how do we do this? Because it's really important to have kind of that analytical understanding, particularly of laws and ordinances and statutes. And like I feel like I sound a little bit elitist saying this, but like we have lawyers, like it's great. Like we have a whole law department. There's 20 lawyers who work for me, but like respectfully to them, like I want to double check their work, right? And there's plenty of times where like I see something come across and I'm like, I don't agree with that. And I go back and like my chief of staff is a lawyer too. and like her and I go back and like we're not practicing law, but like we look at it, we're like they need to go back and look at this again, right? And having the knowledge base and the background to be able to say that is really important. And so it's not that like you have to be a lawyer to be involved in politics or anything like that, but I do think like the analytical education, to be able to like look at arguments and pull apart arguments and like figure out what the like being able to make the strongest argument for the other side and being able to figure out your weakest arguments, like those are all really helpful. And just like a good kind of, I mean, like really what law school is like 3 years of someone kind of just like messing with your brain. And like that has pros and cons, right? Like you'll be like really annoying at parties and stuff like that, but like you do start thinking in a different way, and that can be really helpful when you're trying to go through all these things. I will say, like, around a lot of the things around public safety, we're talking about these use of force policies, and we're talking about like what the legal standard is, like, what is objectively reasonable. Like it's really helpful to like have been in law school sitting there talking about what objectively reasonable means, so that like when someone says, well, this is totally justified, I'm like, that, well, there's a whole bunch of other people who say the opposite, right? So like, and I know that, right? So like you bring the level, especially for younger people, if like what you're talking about, it's a lot easier to like say like, okay, you might discount me because I'm young, but I also have like this knowledge base and this skill set that you don't have. So that's part of
it. So I'm Mayor Malik. I'm Tenzin Patel. I'm the events director, and I joined a little late, but I do have a question for you that I think is pretty interesting.
Nice. So before you get to the question, where are you at?
I'm in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So I actually live pretty close to Ankita. So I know her pretty well. And we've worked together on some things.
So what's your question?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. What did you say?
What's your question?
Oh, my question. My question is, so throughout your career, like you've worked on some grassroots organizing in the Midwest, and I was wondering like what strategies you found most effective in building trust between like local governments and these communities, especially in the Midwest where there's a big like rep.
Like knocking on doors and knocking on doors and knocking on doors and knocking on doors and knocking on doors. I mean, like there is no substitute to just talking to people, right? Like, I mean, it's why I like politics, and it's also the hardest part about it is just that like spending time with people and really understanding them, understanding their values, understanding their flaws, understanding their hopes, and like sharing who you are and being authentic. Like people do not care what your policy platform is as much as they care about whether they can trust you. And if they think you're like a real person and they think you're not, excuse me, bullshitting them, then like, that matters way more than if they agree with you, right? A whole bunch of like country club Republicans support me for city council, like while I'm telling them I'm an Elizabeth Warren Democrat, because they also knew that I knocked on their door in the snow, like in a snowstorm, and that I'm clearly not doing this for the money, right? So I think it's there's no substitute for like knocking on doors, meeting people where they're at, and just like forming relationships, forming connections with them. And you never know, like you might end up like finding these crazy connections. I knocked on the door of this woman who, lived around the corner from me. And it turns out she used to play tennis with my mom. This was back when I was running for city council. Like, I don't know if I would be the mayor without her. Like, she helped us raise a ton of money. She's like a huge kind of person in the philanthropic community. But like, I just happened to knock on her door one day, right? So I just knocking on doors.
So would you say that canvassing is probably the best way you found like to build trust between like local communities and governments then, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, I probably didn't answer the question exactly. I think it's the best way to build trust between like candidates and campaigns and people. I think that when it comes to local government, the other piece is like getting stuff done and making people's lives better, right? So like it doesn't matter if people think like Shammas is a nice guy, if like Shammas isn't getting anything done to make their lives better and make them feel safer and making sure that we have good jobs and making sure there's good housing. And so like that's the tough part because like I can control some of it, but like I can't snap my fingers and there be good jobs. I can't snap my fingers and there not be shootings. But I can work at it. I can create policies and programs. I can build partnerships with federal and state officials. Like I can do those things, but it's the both. It's meeting people where they're at and being authentic and engaging with them, but it's also like getting stuff done and showing people results. Because what did they say? They say like Republicans want to win and Democrats want to be right, and it's like like it doesn't matter if you're right if you're not making people's lives better. You have to make people's lives better.
Of course, that's the essential goal of any government, any politician. I feel like it's to make people's lives better.
Unfortunately, I have to run. So I can do one more question.
You can do one more question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have one more question from Zaid, but right before you have to leave, because you probably have to leave right after that question, could we take a quick photo?
Sure.
Okay, cool. If anyone is available to turn on their cameras, would love for you to do that really quick. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you so much, Zaid. Go for it.
So the final question is, you won a highly competitive primary race for mayor. What advice do you have for candidates running in tough primaries?
It's tough. It's tough because you can't control the outcome, right? Like all you can control is what you put into it, right? And it's like super stressful. And I've run 2 campaigns and I've won twice. And I haven't experienced the terrible side of election night, but I might at some point. I think you just have to like work as hard as you possibly can. Like there were times coming home from campaigning where like I would fall asleep in my car, like in the driveway before I like got out of the car because I was so tired. I'm not saying you have to like work yourself to death, but I think like you have to be willing to, put in the work. I think the other piece is like you have to be willing to ask people for help. Like when I ran for mayor, we raised $750,000. Like it's awful. I hate asking people for money. I had to call every person I've ever met and ask them for money. Like every person I've ever met. And like that's the only way it's gonna happen. I had to ask all of my friends to knock on doors, and then I had to ask them the next weekend and the next weekend and the next weekend. Like it's a miracle that any of them still talk to me. But like you have to be willing to do that. So I would just say like just hard work. And also like being willing to like know that like all you can do is put your work into it and your heart into it. And like if it doesn't go your way, it doesn't go your way. Like I've seen a lot of candidates a lot better than me like lose elections that they should have won, because like that's not where the electorate is at, or it's bad circumstances or things like that. Like these things happen. Like it's not always the best person wins. It's not. I wish it was. But I think like you also have to find the joy and the fun in it. So like figure out what you enjoy. Like I actually enjoy knocking on doors because I like talking to people. Like you have to find the thing that you enjoy in it. That's really important too. So I'm sorry that I gotta go. But please reach out anytime. And Kita has my email address. If anyone wants any advice or any help or anything like that, happy to do it. I don't want to be super corny, but I'm also inspired by you guys. It's a lot more of a cynical time than when I was in high school. It's a lot more, reasons to not want to get involved, but it's really cool that you guys want to do that. And so anything that I can do to help out, like, now I'm the old guy. And so like you guys are up next.
Thank you again so much for being here. We appreciated hearing from you.
All right. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Like,
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Zayed, can I speak with you like after?
Oh, but
Sure.
Safa, okay, so how is it going with Aftab?
Okay, so basically, like, I got one of his stats. I told you this, right?
Yes, you did.
And she just never responded, and I was like, okay, great.
That
But
sucks.
I know, I was like, hello, and we're like tight too. So I was like, bro, like, why are you doing me like this?
That's crazy. Do you know the staffer that I got from that nonprofit I emailed? They literally I have a feeling the staffer they were talking about like left or something because he just left me on red for like 3 weeks.
Wait, that's actually crazy.
I'm dying, bro. This is crazy. I should have gotten his contact number. Like, I swear.
No,
He
I
just-
know, and my chair like had his number before, but then she was like, it's not the right number anymore, and I'm like, oh.